I hope it's going to be better now. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Good. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Prabhupada entitled Canto 10, the Summum Bonum. All the other cantos lead up to Canto 10. And of course, Canto 10, it's like 89 or 90 chapters about the direct pastimes of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And we're reading chapter 12, which is entitled The Killing of the Demon Aghasura. It's April 15th, 2020.
I lost the bookmark. 14?
It's chapter 12. Yeah, we're on text 14. Yeah, we read the first 13 verses of this chapter, including this verse that Prabhupada quotes a lot, which is text 11. Itam satam brahmasukanabuti desyam ditanam paradevitanam ayashitanam nagdaya kena sakam vijo krita punya punjam. That in this way, all the cowherd boys used to play with Krishna, who is the source of the Brahman effulgence for jnanis desiring to merge into that effulgence, who is the supreme personality of Godhead for devotees who have accepted eternal servitorship, and who for ordinary persons is but another ordinary child. The cowherd boys, having accumulated the results of pious activities for many lives, were able to associate in this way with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can one explain their great fortune? So this is very significant that here's a pastime. The cowherd boys were stealing each other's lunch and playing keep away and imitating the frogs and playing with the monkeys and flying with the shadows of the birds in the sky and trying to be the first one to touch Krishna. And now they encounter this kind of python structure, which they think is this just some natural structure here in the park, or is this what is this? Okay. All right, so, because like let's say if we go to the yoga studio down the road in practically any city of the world, certainly Gainesville or Orlando or any city in Europe or India, or all over the world, the idea of the yoga. So to be immersed, to be absorbed in these pastimes, this is the goal of all that. I mean, not that they know that, but according to the source, according to the Vedas, meditation on Vaikuntha Lila, on Goloka Lila, Gokula Lila, meditation on Krishna Lila. This is what it says in the yogic scriptures. The idea is that one controls the body so that the mind can be controlled. And then there's that discipline and the purification and control. Make the mind the friend instead of the enemy. Bhagavad Gita describes the mind to be the best friend or the worst enemy. And if we focus the mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's our best friend. Otherwise, it takes us more and more into entanglement of the material world. So it's actually described in those literature, those original literatures that describe yoga, and the idea is to sit in a certain way, but the goal isn't some sitting postures, or the goal isn't muscle tone or something like that. I mean, there are byproducts, like that. Even inner peace is a byproduct, it's not the goal. And the goal, then the yogi is able to be peaceful, and generally this takes more than 15 minutes a day on Sundays like that. And then the yogi, it's got some, like if someone's serious and really goes to a secluded place, takes tens of thousands of years. That's why kind of Prabhupada often points out the farce of modern so-called yoga. But then, okay, so then the yogi, he gets in touch with the super soul. Prashanti Yogi, thanks for that, yes. He gets in touch with the super soul. Sarvasya Chami Disani Vistu, okay. And the super soul, well, it can take different forms for different yogis. Ultimately, for the devotee, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanina Shanta Sadeva Vidaya Shri Lokayanti Yam Sham Sundam Chitjaguna Sarupam Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. For the devotee, the super soul takes the form of Shyamasundara Krishna, possessing innumerable transcendental attributes who the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts, the heart of the hearts, with the eyes of devotion tinged with the salve of love. But typically, so the yogi will get in touch with super souls, which is like a four-arm form of Narayan, or the Paramatma, four-arm Vishnu form. And then the yogi starts in what we might call Shanta Ras, a ras of neutrality, and kind of meditates on the different aspects of the bodily form of the super soul in the heart. And then it's described. And the yogi meditates on the different leelas. It's Vaikuntha Leela. And then the sincere yogi who doesn't fall into the trap of thinking, I am the super soul, I am God, and that is a pitfall on the path. Then the yogi develops like a real desire, like, this is the most beautiful, amazing person, right, sitting right next to me in the core of my heart. I want to serve this person. And then Dasya Ras begins. And then that leads to more and more intimate service. And then we're on the path of bhakti. It's no longer, then mystic yoga merges into bhakti. That's why Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham matgetanantaratmana shradavan bhajate yomam same tatamomata. That's the last verse of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And in that chapter and the 5th chapter, Krishna is describing like the mystic yoga process and the sitting postures. And he says it all culminates in the yogi who's successful, being fully, the highest yogi, param yogi, being fully absorbed in me, my form, my name, my pastimes, my qualities. So this is the goal of all the philosophical speculation process, the goal of all yoga, the goal of Varnashram, to be absorbed. That's why Sukadeva Goswami, who's the greatest yogi, he's so much appreciating the advancement of these cowherd boys, that they're far, 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 trillions of times greater spiritually than any of these yogis. And they're just like eating gulabjamins with Krishna, and they're chasing the frogs, and they're like that, and they're far, far greater than these philosophical speculators, right? Who might strive for millions of years and lifetimes, maybe to get a glimpse of the effulgence of the radiance from Krishna's toenail. It's actually described. Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragami Vayuratapi Manasami Pungavanyam. So Pyastiyat Prapadasimnya Vichinchitatve Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So that just gives us a context. So it's any of these pastimes. If we're meditating on the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, Krishna's pure devotee, same thing as meditating on the pastimes of Aghasura and the pastimes of the gopis and Krishna. If we're meditating on the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj and Nrsimhadev, it's the same thing. Okay. So we have thousands of pastimes to choose from. Pastimes and qualities of the transcendental personality of God and his pure devotees. The pastimes of the pure devotees are non-different from the pastimes of Krishna.
Okay. Wondering about this though, like I'm supposed to realize Paramatma in my heart and offer the devotion to him, but I don't know, I don't understand how that's like when I'm chanting my japa, for example, how I'm supposed to do that. Like mostly I'm offering what I'm doing into my mind, I guess, like upwards, you know.
Yeah, that's not our process.
Yeah.
That's not our process. That's why Lord Chaitanya, because like, okay, the goal of all that yoga process, which can take millions of lifetimes for a sincere yogi, the goal is to come to chant Hare Krishna. And the goal is to be absorbed in Krishna book. Well, this is a form of Krishna book. That's the goal. So Lord Chaitanya, he's saying just go directly to the goal. It's the elevator process. So he's just, the goal, the yogis come to the goal of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and being absorbed in the pastimes of Mother Yashoda and Krishna and the cowherd boys. That's the goal of the yoga. So through Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada, they're just saying, just go directly to the goal. Just go directly to the goal. And that goal includes super soul realization. It includes Brahman realization. Because there's Brahman, Brahmanohi Pratishtam. Krishna is the source of the Brahman. And Krishna is Para-Brahman. He's Para-Brahman. So Para-Brahman includes Brahman. Para-Brahman means the supreme Brahman. So we're getting like, instead of like climbing 3,000 flights of steps, we're getting a quick elevator. Hare Krishna. All right, so text 14 of chapter 12, Canto 10 reads, Trishtvarbakam Krishna Mukhana Aghasura Kamsa Dushishta Sabaki Bhakvanuja Ayam Tume Sodara Nasakitayar Vayor Mamayam Sabalam Manishe. Aghasura, who had been sent by Kamsa, was the younger brother of Putana and Aghasura. Therefore, when he came and saw Krishna at the head of all the cowherd boys, he thought, this Krishna has killed my sister and brother, Putana and Aghasura. Therefore, in order to please them both, I shall kill this Krishna along with his assistants, the other cowherd boys. Iteyadama Tsuvidostilapa Kritastara Nashta Samavrajokasa Pranegate Varsma Sukhanu Chinta Prajasavaprana Brito Yete. Aghasura thought, if somehow or other I can make Krishna and his associates serve as the last offering of sesame and water for the departed souls of my brother and sister, then the inhabitants of Rajabhumi, for whom these boys are the life and soul, will automatically die. If there is no life, there is no need for the body. Consequently, when their sons are dead, naturally all the inhabitants of Vraja will die. Itivya Vasya Jagarambri Hadvapu Sayojaya Mama Tripivam Tripad Buddham Jata Kuhananam Tada Pativya Sheta Grasana Sayakala. After thus deciding, that crooked Aghasura assumed the form of a huge python as thick as a big mountain and as long as 8 miles. Having assumed this wonderful python's body, he spread his mouth like a big cave in the mountains and lay down on the road, expecting to swallow Krishna and his associates, the cowherd boys.
So he was a shapeshifter, like Manisha and Putana.
Seems like he's a shapeshifter, yes. And this term Aghasura, the word Agha means sin, really means like severe sins, malicious, intense sins. So it's like he's an asura, a demoniac character that embodies these intense sins. Text 17. Dara daroshto jaladotaroshto daryananando girishringalamstra tvantantarasyo vitatadvajiva Prabhusha Nila Svashadave Kshanoshna. His lower lip rested on the surface of the earth, and his upper lip was touching the clouds in the sky. The borders of his mouth resembled the sides of a big cave in a mountain, and the middle of his mouth was as dark as possible. His tongue resembled a broad traffic way, his breath was like a warm wind, and his eyes blazed like fire. Dvishtratam tadvisham sarve matpravrindavana shriyam yata jagaratundena yudprikshante smalilaya. Upon seeing this demon's wonderful form, which resembled a great python, the boys thought that it must be a beautiful scenic spot of Vrindavan. Thereafter, they imagined it to be similar to the mouth of a great python. In other words, the boys, unafraid, thought that it was a statue made in the shape of a great python for the enjoyment of their pastimes. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Some of the boys, upon seeing this wonderful phenomenon, thought that it was in fact a python, and they were fleeing from the spot. But others said, "Why are you fleeing? It is not possible that a python like this is staying there. This is a spot of beauty for sporting." This is what they imagined. Text 19. Aho mitrani gadata satvakutam purastitam asmat sanrasana vyata yaratunda yutevava. The boy said, "Dear friends, is this creature dead? Or is it actually a living python with its mouth spread wide just to swallow us all? Kindly clear up this doubt." Purport, the friends began to discuss among themselves the reality of the wonderful creature laying before them. Was it dead, or was it actually a living python trying to swallow them up? Satyam arka kararaktam uttara hanubadganam adara hanubadro astad patichaya yarunam. Thereafter they decided, "Dear friends, this is certainly an animal sitting here to swallow us all. Its upper lip resembles a cloud reddened by the sunshine, and its lower lip resembles the reddish shadows of a cloud. Patis pardete srikabhyam savya savyena gotare tunga shringalayo pitas tatam strabischa pashatam. On the left and right, the two depressions resembling mountain caves are the corners of its mouth, and the high mountain peaks are its teeth. Astritayam amargoyam vasanam pratikarjati esam antargatam dvantam etad apyantar ananam. In length and breadth, the animal's tongue resembles a broad traffic way, and the inside of its mouth is very, very dark, like a cave in a mountain. Davoshna karavatoyam swasavad bhakti pashyata tadabda sattva durgandho pyantar amisha gandhavat. The hot fiery wind is the breath coming out of his mouth, which is giving off the bad smell of burning flesh because of all the dead bodies he has eaten. Asmat kimatra vasitani vishtan ayam tatache bhagavad vinokshati sanadani tipakarishanmukam diksyo dasanta karata daner yayu. Dr. Keith, would you like to read the translation and purport?
Then the boys said, has this living creature come to swallow us? If he does so, he will immediately be killed like Aghasura without delay. Thus they looked at the beautiful face of Krishna and the enemy of Aghasura and laughed loudly, clapping their hands. Let me read this again. They said, has this living creature come to swallow us? If he does so, he will immediately be killed by Aghasura without delay. This they looked at the beautiful face of Krishna, the enemy of Aghasura, and laughing loudly and clapped their hands, they entered the mouth of the python. Purport. After talking about the terrible animal in this way and that way, they decided to enter the demon's mouth. They had full faith in Krishna because they had experienced how Krishna had saved them from the mouth of Aghasura. Now, here was another Asura, Aghasura. Therefore, they wanted to enjoy the sport of entering the demon's mouth and being saved by Krishna, the enemy of Aghasura.
Text 25. Itam mito tatskapa sitam chutpa vichintya mishayate raksyo viti pakila utaritsvita smanam nirodum bhagavan lakodare. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is situated as Antaryami, the Super Soul, in the core of everyone's heart, heard the boys talking among themselves about the artificial python. Unknown to them, it was actually Aghasura, a demon who had appeared as a python. Krishna, knowing this, wanted to forbid his associates to enter the demon's mouth. Tavat pravishtas tvasuro durantaram param virna shishava savatsa pratikshamanena bakari vishanam. In the meantime, while Krishna was considering how to stop them, all the cowherd boys entered the mouth of the demon. The demon, however, did not swallow them, for he was thinking of his own relatives who had been killed by Krishna and was just waiting for Krishna to enter his mouth. Tandiksha Krishna Sakala Bhaya Pradu Yanam Yanatan Svakaradavatchutan Dinam Stramidjur Tataragnikasam Greenhardito Dishtakrite Vismita. Krishna saw that all the cowherd boys, who did not know anyone but him as their Lord, had now gone out of his hand and were helpless, having entered like straws into the fire of the abdomen of Aghasura, who was death personified. It was intolerable for Krishna to be separated from his friends, the cowherd boys. Therefore, as if seeing that this had been arranged by his internal potency, Krishna was momentarily struck with wonder and unsure of what to do. That happens sometimes. Krishna gets amazed by his own potencies, and he's like kind of stunned. So that's happening here. Text 28. Krityam kim atrasya kalasya jivanam nava amisham chasatam vihimsanam tvayam katamsya iti samvichintya gatva vishatundam shatrikari. Ramachandra, would you like to read translation and purport?
Now what was to be done? How could both the killing of this demon and the saving of the devotees be performed simultaneously? Krishna being unlimitedly potent, decided to wait for an intelligent means by which he could simultaneously save the boys and kill the demon. Then he entered the mouth of Aghasura, purported by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna is known as Ananta Vriya Sarvagya because everything is known to him. Because he knows everything perfectly well, it was not difficult for him to find a means by which he could save the boys and at the same time kill the demon. Thus, he also decides to enter the demon's mouth. It kind of reminds me, Prabhupada gives this analogy with the thief and the householder.
Oh yes.
Like the householder wants his property to be kept safe from the thief.
He's praying to God for that.
Yes, and the thief praying to God, help me to steal from the householder.
Yes.
And Krishna is samasya, what is it? Vairagya, samagrasya, sarvagya, ananta vairagya.
Trikaligya.
So somehow he puts the puzzle pieces together.
Yes. He's very expert in that way.
He's able to, he satisfies them both. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like with Arjuna and Draupadi and what was that, in the first canto, they were
over Ashvatam.
Ashvatam, exactly. Yeah. So Krishna empowered Arjuna to find a way to resolve all apparent contradictions. Text 29. Tadagana tadadeva vayada heti chakushu dari shurye chakam sadya konapastva bandhava. When Krishna entered the mouth of Aghasura, the demigods hidden behind the clouds exclaimed, "Alas, alas!" But the friends of Aghasura, like Kamsa and other demons, were jubilant. Tachutva Bhagavan Krishna Stvajaya Surva Bhaksakam Churni Chikishuramanam Tarasava Videgale. When the invincible Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna heard the demigods cry, "Alas, alas," from behind the clouds, he immediately enlarged himself within the demon's throat just to save himself and the cowherd boys, his own associates, from the demon who wished to smash them. Tato tikaya sunivuda margino yudgir. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Such are the acts of Krishna. Paritranaya sadhunam vinachaya sadustrikam. That's from Bhagavad Gita 4.8. By enlarging himself within the throat of the demon, Krishna suffocated and killed him, and at the same time saved himself and his associates from imminent death, and also saved the demigods from lamentation.
It's kind of bewilders me that Krishna, like, he says that everyone is in me, right? But he enters the demon. It's kind of like
Inconceivable.
yeah. He decides to enter. He's parts and parcel.
Yes, well, okay, because, well, there's that verse in Brahma Samhita, Ekopya Sora Chaitum Jagadata Kotim, Yachtaktir Asti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanda, Dantarasta Paramanu Chantarastam, Govindamani Purusham Tambaham Bhajami. So everything is within Krishna, and Krishna is within every atom, which means within every atom there is everything. Okay.
Oh, it was already in the demon.
So this, I think the more we engage in bhakti with heart and soul, the more we can conceive the inconceivable. Where are we? Text
31.
Text 31. Okay. Tato tikaya sinivuda margino yudgir nadrishter brahmatas tvitastatam pornontar ange pavanoni vudo mordan vinir bija vinir gato bhakti. Then, because Krishna had increased the size of his body, the demon extended his own body to a very large size. Nonetheless, his breathing stopped, he suffocated, and his eyes rolled here and there and popped out. The demon's life air, however, could not pass through any outlet, and therefore it finally burst out through a hole in the top of the demon's head. Tenaiva sarveshu bahirgateshu praneshu vatsan surida paretan Drishya swayota piltad anvita punar bhagtrad mukundo bhagavan vidir yayo. When all the demon's life air had passed away through that hole in the top of his head, Krishna glanced over the dead calves and cowherd boys and brought them back to life. Then Mukunda, who can give one liberation, came out from the demon's mouth with his friends and the calves. That's the name of Krishna, Mukunda, one who gives liberation. Text 33. Pinahi boho tiktam adbhutam mahaj yotis vadanga tvalaya dishano dashara pratiksha kevastitam ishanir gamam divesha tasmin mishatam divaokasam. Leigh, would you like to read translation and purport?
Okay. Translation from the body of the gigantic python, A glaring effulgence came out, illuminating all directions, and stayed individually in the sky until Krishna came out from the corpse's mouth. Then all the demigods looked on. This effulgence entered into Krishna's body. Purport. Apparently the serpent named Aghasura, because of having received association with Krishna, attained mukti by entering Krishna's body. Entering the body of Krishna is called Sayujya Mukti, but later verses prove that Aghasura, like Dantavakra and others, received Sarupya Mukti. This has been broadly described by Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur with references from Vaishnava Tosani of Srila Jiva Goswami. Aghasura attained Sarupa Mukti, being promoted to the Vaikuntha planets to live with the same four-armed bodily features as Vishnu. The explanation of how this is so may be summarized as follows. The effulgence came out from the python's body and became purified, attaining spiritual Shuddha Sattva, freedom from the material contamination, because Krishna had stayed within the serpent's body even after the serpent's death. One may doubt that such a demon full of mischievous activities could attain the liberation of Sarupya or Saruja, and one may be astonished about this, but Krishna is so kind that in order to drive away such doubts, he had the effulgence, the individual life of the python, wait for some time in its individuality in the presence of all the demigods. Krishna is the full effulgence, and even living being, and every living being is part and parcel of that effulgence. As proved here, the effulgence in every living being is individual. For some time, the effulgence remained outside the demon's body individually and did not mix with the whole effulgence, the Brahmajyoti. The Brahman effulgence is not visible to materialize, but to prove that every living being is individual, Krishna had this individual effulgence stay outside the demon's body for some time for everyone to see. Then Krishna proved that anyone killed by him attains liberation, whether Shayuja, Sharupya, Samipya, or whatever. But the liberation of those who are on the transcendental platform of love and affection is vimukti, special liberation. Thus the serpent first entered the body of Krishna personally and mixed with the Brahman effulgence. This merging is called Sayujya Mukti. But from later verses, we find that Aghasura attained Sarupya Mukti. Text 38 explains that Aghasura attained a body exactly like that of Vishnu, and the verse after that also clearly states that he attained a completely spiritual body like that of Narayan. Therefore, in 2 or 3 places, the Bhagavatam has confirmed that Aghasura attained Sarupya Mukti. One may then argue, how is it that he mixed with Brahman effulgence? The answer is that as Jaya and Vijaya, after 3 births, again attained Sarupya Mukti, and association with the Lord, Aghasura received a similar liberation.
So Aghasura was a selected demon, like a selected spirit soul from the spiritual world, like Jai Vijay.
Well, I'm not sure of his history. I mean, what I'm understanding, I'm not sure of his past, but his future is very clear. So this is a very malicious, toxic demon. He wanted to kill Krishna, the cowherd boys, and all the residents of Vrindavan. His thoughts were, when all the children are killed, then all the residents will just die. And so that was his dream and vision. So this is a very vicious, wicked person, wicked soul. And so really it's like highlighting the power of Krishna. So just because Krishna touched his body, he got, let's call it impersonal liberation. He got completely He got completely purified of material desires. However, it's described in the Bhagavatam, that generally speaking, even those who get the impersonal liberation, merging into the oneness and like that, generally there's still some tinge of impure intelligence, some tinge of envy, and so they don't take to devotional service, and then they fall back down to the material world. That's why this impersonal liberation, oftentimes Prabhupada doesn't even include it amongst the types of liberation. But this Aghasura, he was such a sinful, wicked personality, but he got so purified by connection with Krishna, even though it was, his intent was malicious. He got so purified just by, that's the thing, like the sun can, there can be just a pool of urine or something, and it'll get purified by exposure to the sun. So any connection with Krishna, he got so purified that he not just got impersonal liberation, but as Prabhupada's saying, we're going to read, he got liberation in his eternal spiritual body. So that's called Sarupya.
Like Pandraka today.
Like Pandraka, exactly. So just like it's a testimony to how purifying any connection with Krishna is. What to speak, so he approached Krishna with demoniac intent. What to speak of someone who approaches Krishna, who actually wants to do service out of affection, how purifying that is. Well, we can read another verse. Text 34. Now, from here on, a lot of the rest of the chapter, there's some extensive philosophical purports, because these are rather subtle technical points of Vaishnava philosophy coming up here. Text 34. Tato tuishta svakrito kritarhanam pushpai suga apsarasascha nartanai gitai sarvajadarascha vajakai stavaischa viprajani svanirgana. Bhakti Danielle, would you like to read?
Yes, I will read. Therefore, everyone being pleased, the demigods began to shower flowers from Nandana Kanana. The celestial dancing girls began to dance, and the Gandharvas, who are famous for singing, offered songs of prayer. The drummers began to beat their kettle drums, and the Brahmanas offered Vedic hymns. In this way, both in the heavens and on earth, everyone began to perform his own duties, glorifying the Lord. Purport. Everyone has some particular duty. The Sastra has concluded, Nirupita, that everyone should glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his own qualifications. If you are a singer, always glorify the Supreme Lord by singing very nicely. If you are a musician, glorify the Supreme Lord by playing musical instruments. Svasvanu
Dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam.
Bhagavad Gita 1.2.13. The perfection of life is to satisfy the personality of Godhead. Therefore, beginning from this earth up to the celestial kingdom, everyone engaged in glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The decision of all great saintly person is that whatever qualifications one has acquired should be utilized to glorify the Supreme Lord. Idati
Sastapasa shutasya svistasya suktasya chapuri dattayo avishuturtakadipir nirupito yadutama sokakuna varnanam.
Learned sages have definitively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, austerity, Vedic study, sacrifice, the chanting of hymns, and charity is found in the transcendental descriptions of the qualities of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry, Bhagavad Gita 1.5.22. This is the perfection of life. One should be trained how to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead by one's respective qualities: education, austerity, penance, or in the modern world, business, industry, education, and so on, all should be engaged in glorifying the Lord. Then everyone in the world will be happy. Krishna comes therefore to exhibit his transcendental activities so that people may have the chance to glorify him in every respect. To understand how to glorify the Lord is actual research work. It is not that everything should be understood without God. That is condemned. Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya.
Shastram Javastatpa Apranasya Dehasya Mandanam Lokaranjanam.
Without Bhagavad Bhakti, without glorification of the Supreme Lord, whatever we have is simply a decoration of the dead body. Wow.
Wow.
No, I think it was my first sort of realization when I came to Krishna consciousness. Not realization, but the really direct experience of how useless is everything that I'm doing. Because I was doing tattoos, and that's literally you decorate the dead matter.
Literally.
The dead matter, you just paint it, and it's it's dead already. And people spend so much money into that, which is nice for the person who does the tattoos. Yeah.
Yes. So here we see in the verse, there's dancing girls, and there's wonderful singers, and musicians playing drums. So Prabhupada quotes that verse there, Itami Pum Sastam Susritasya, that's spoken by Narada Muni. That actually in that verse itself, the verse in the purport talks about chemistry, talks about politics, talks about economics, talks about social work and psychology and physics, talks about all those areas of human endeavor. And it says it does not say, oh, they're material, they should be rejected. No, it says that they find their perfection. They find their perfection when they're dovetailed for the glorification of the Supreme Lord, because all of those fields of endeavor, they all emanate from Krishna. Krishna is the source of all science and art. They all emanate from Krishna, and they find their perfection when we use them in service to and glorification of Krishna.
I like that part where it says to understand how to glorify the Lord is actual research work. So this is not something that is straightforward, it sounds like. It sounds like this could be a lengthy endeavor, perhaps a couple of lifetimes, all of our lifetimes. Yeah.
Yeah, our propensity to do research, because in one sense, it's so simple. It doesn't take lifetimes, it takes one moment. And in another sense, to really get it and go deeply into how to serve the Supreme Lord and to pierce through all of our deceptions and how to apply that, that's a lifetime of research, or more than a lifetime.
When we have different material bodies, life after life, do we also have different occupations and ways to glorify Krishna? Do we take on new service?
Certainly that's possible. Yeah, I mean, it's well, first of all, there's, whether we're talking about material or spiritual bodies, that's certainly possible. And so, John Bharat, we hear, okay, he was this king, and he became so attracted to Krishna, he gave up his kingdom. He was using his kingdom for Krishna, but he gave it up and went to the forest. So he was using money and palaces and his, all of the citizens. He was using that Krishna service. Then he went to the forest, and then he just had this simple in the forest. Okay, and then he got affectionate towards a deer, and he lost his focus. I took birth as a deer. Then in the next birth, he took birth as Jad Bharat. We talked about this a few days ago. Jad Bharat, and then he was playing deaf. He was playing stupid, and then his service, he was wandering all over, and then he met Maharaj Rahugana, and he started instructing this great king in transcendental science, and it was quite a shock for Maharaj Rahugana, because Maharaj Rahugana, he recruited Jad Bharat to help hold his palanquin, right? So he was carrying the king's palanquin. This is described in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam. And then so the king's riding on his palanquin. And then the king noticed that the ride is bumpy. It's a bumpy ride. So he goes, what's happening? So all his ministers say, well, it's this fool here. He's stumbling. And he's stumbling. And it's Jad Bharat. So Maharaj Rahugana says, what are you doing? You're strong. You can carry this. Why are you stumbling? So he gets back on the, and he's still stumbling. So anyhow, as it turns out, Jad Bharat, when he was walking, carrying the palanquin, he didn't want to step on ants. Okay, and then Maharaj Bharat, he starts rebuking him like, you fool, you idiot. You know, I could have you beheaded and like that. And then, okay, and then so Jad Bharat just tolerates it. And then Jad Bharat, it's a beautiful section of the Bhagavatam. Jad Bharat, he's just playing stupid. And then at one point, he's tolerating all these insults from the foolish king. And then he just starts speaking. He goes, well, you're calling me fat. You're calling me stupid. But actually, we are not this body. We are not this mind. And right now, you are in the position of king, and I am your servant. Perhaps in a past life, I was king, and you were my servant. And then he goes on for chapters, and then the king's just stunned, because like that. So I'm saying that this spirit soul was in the body of a king, was in the body of a palanquin holder, and he had different services. And so it's described in the spiritual realm. Every word is a song. every step is a dance. What's that? Every gate, that's the way it's translated. That's what it yeah. So, and Prabhupada emphasizes that spiritual life, whether we perform it here or in Goloka Vrindavan, it's never hackneyed, it's never stereotyped, it's never stagnant. So it's never same old, same old. So just enlivened by unlimited varieties of service. Unlimited varieties of service. Yeah, for sure. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Oh, I was just thinking, I thought I heard something about being able to sometimes have the same spiritual qualities carry over with you into a next lifetime. I thought I was hearing about that in some cases, that it can happen, that you have some gifts or some special potencies that can rise up with you.
For sure, yeah, definitely. Yam yam brapi sman bhavam jaja jante kalebram tam tam eveti kanteya sadatad bhava bhavita. Maybe you know that verse. That's one of the verses that we put on the list. So that's 8th chapter. That whatever state of being one is absorbed in, when the soul leaves the body, that state we will attain without fail. So if we have like an absorption in a particular type of mentality, like maybe someone like Mozart, or like Mozart was spontaneously composing symphonies at 4 years old or something, right? All right. So like, almost surely, like in a previous life, he was really absorbed. He was really absorbed in music. We can imagine something like that came from a previous life.
Yeah, I'm working now on this video, translating it for mainly for the community here, so we can have a Krishna movie night and watch it. About this Druze kid who he wasn't talking until he was 2 years old, and then when he was 2 years old, he just started mumbling, and the mumble turned to a British English from the 18th century, and he uses words like "my dear" and like. Children do not even use words like in English. You don't hear children expressing themselves like that. So,
Yeah, and there's no way he could have picked it up. It's yeah, I saw the video. It's in Hebrew. Yeah, it's a clear proof that there's something non-physical that existed before the birth of this body.
Yeah, that's actually the part I'm translating now. They interviewing this expert in linguistics and psychoanalysis or something like that. And they ask them, is there, because she's very like keen with the idea of reincarnations, but they ask her, okay, let's put reincarnations aside. Now, is there any other option for that? And she tells them that, yeah, there is. If that kid is absorbed from like the time he's in the womb in 24-hour hearing English, but it's not the case because his parents don't even speak English. So she doesn't even believe that there's anything like that is possible in a regular.
Yeah. So we carry conceptions. Shariram Yadavapnoti Yachapyukam Nishran Ruhit Vetani Samiti Vayoragandani Vashyat. As the air carries aromas, the spirit soul carries conceptions from one life, from one body to the next.
I had a question.
Yeah,
about this aspect of decorating a dead body, and something that comes from me from like the other perspective, like is there a possibility in our like in the practice of our spiritual life of that we like use Krishna to decorate our dead body too, like we like, you know, we use Krishna to, I don't know, make our life seem to be more spiritual, or yeah, like.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would be using a shadow form of Krishna, not the real thing, but like Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that there are Kali Chelas, and they might dress in dhoti, kurta, and tilak, and they might be, you know, like that. And Kali Chela means like an imposter, and they might look like Vaishnavas, and even have some of the external practices, but it's all about their aggrandizing their false ego, and they're really cheaters. So for sure, we could have a spiritual mask. We can have a Hare Krishna devotee mask, where we could have, you know, humble Vaishnava, but it's a mask, and it's very hollow and superfluous, and it's just very empty, for sure.
Now that's really triggers me because I feel on the spot.
Yeah, you get put on the spot.
The only bald guy in the room.
How? Because I mean, I perceive that as I know that's a mask. I'm aware of that. But what I remember from like the course, that I mean, there's a mask, but there's a mask that we hiding behind, and the mask is not serving us. And yeah, like for me, it's like I kind of take some percentage of like this quote that you don't like, fake it till you make it, and I kind of build it from there in a sense, because I know I'm not a devotee. I'm not like the only gifts that I did, just gifts to Prabhupada, is like taking the formal initiation, making a vow that, you know, I'm like you know, struggling, maintaining, and like I do my rounds and I keep up all the regular principles. And last year I had a fall down, and I'm just like wondering like how much of that mask is like hiding. And because again, like I'm saying, I'm aware that it's a mask, but is there such a thing of not wearing a mask in the material world, really? Like I'm really confused by my own perception of philosophy.
Quite a subtle mask to be able to distinguish between the devotee mask and cultivating qualities of a devotee. It must be very subtle.
Subtle distinction.
To be able to see that.
I like the language you use there about to keep. Right, because like Krishna warns in the 3rd chapter, he says, don't be a pretender, and what can repression accomplish? So the way I see it is like, okay, if we see like, yeah, I got all these material desires, and I yeah, I've got all these non-devotional demoniac qualities. And I'm practicing bhakti, not with too much depth. So that's not the pretender that Krishna is warning against. Krishna is warning against like someone's like a meditator or a devotee and kind of pretending that I don't have desires that I do. Then that's that beach ball that we're pushing down that drives our life from beneath the conscious surface. But kind of like, okay, I'm on the path of bhakti. I'm just taking a few baby steps. I'm not walking at a brisk pace. I'm definitely not jogging or sprinting. I'm on this path and I have these material attachments. All right, so that's not a mask. That's not a pretender. Whereas it's kind of like I'm pretending to others or even to myself that I don't have these material attachments and I'm on the transcendental platform, and then all these material desires, because I'm not acknowledging them, come out from within like that. So of course Arjuna had no material attachments, pure devotee, but he was playing a role. And so like Arjuna, his nature was to fight and be fierce and be a kshatriya and be a warrior. And so he was kind of playing like, I'll be spiritual instead. I'll go to the forest. I don't want to fight my enemies. I'll be good and spiritual. So then Krishna was saying, well, that would be like a pretender. Your nature is to fight. Don't pretend that you're this Brahmin. You're not. You're kshatriya. So fight. And true, yeah, don't do it ultimately for material reasons. Fight for me. Fight for me. Fight because it'll please me. Then you take your nature and you merge it into transcendence. And that's far higher than denying your nature in the name of being spiritual. That would be a spiritual mask, to use Arjuna's example.
Is not taking, like if I don't take responsibility over my material desires, let's say I have sex desire and I don't get married and take responsibility over a family, is that a way of hiding, pretense?
Yeah, like if there's sex desire, I mean there could be some sex desire in that, but okay. But I'm okay, I feel it, but I'm not acting on it, and I'm doing devotional service, okay. But kind of like if I'm in an externally renounced ashram and I have all this sex desire coming out in different unhealthy, maybe even harmful, damaging ways, that's a disturbance to devotional service, then that's like a result of me pretending because I want to get the respect and the adoration of people who think I'm this greatly renounced person. And so I've got all this repressed stuff going on, oppressed, suppressed, and it comes out in ways that are a disturbance to my devotional service and the devotional service of others. Yeah.
This idea of beware of false prophets seems to be linking up for me, because sharing Krishna consciousness is not comfortable for me sometimes because I'm not a pure devotee. And so it's hard for me sometimes to want to involve someone knowing that I'm so imperfect. I feel like I'm qualified all the time. I feel like, but yet I'm gonna stand up in front of people and talk about my process and ask them about their process and try to present Prabhupada to them. And man, I really, sometimes I just feel like, it's not that I feel like a charlatan or a fraud. It's more like, I don't know, like I try to stay connected. I try to stay connected to what I know to be true in my interactions and represent Prabhupada the best I can in the way that other person can hear it and understand it, even if I never say the word Prabhupada or I never say the word Krishna. I don't know. You have so much experience in this area. I don't know if you can offer any advice or guidance or just feel my pain. I don't know, because it's tender for me because I've started doing more
outreach, and I feel like it's this specific thing, beware of false. I don't want to be a false prophet. I don't want to lead people astray. And at the same time, I want to convey Prabhupada and Krishna in a way that they can understand and that they can connect to. Just the essence.
For sure. Yeah, well, I feel comfortable to lead people to Prabhupada, and so yeah, and then like I certainly often now and over the decades, yeah, it was 40 years ago this year I took my first prasadam, started reading my first small books of Srila Prabhupada. Yes, I've also felt like and do feel like a charlatan and like that, and a pretender and all of that. And yeah, and so, okay, so like that, the pain and the shame of that and like that. All right, so I want that to move me, not to like just kind of shame myself, or, you know, because shame and guilt are not very, you know, good motivators to improve. But let that move me to clean up my act. Let that move me to be more pure today than yesterday. Let that move me to be a cleaner representative of Prabhupada and Srimad Bhagavatam. And yeah, I mean, I'm often lamenting that I'm not a better, more pure, more honest instrument, more sincere instrument for Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. I lament that a lot. And I want that lamentation not to send me into depression, which just becomes, you know, payoff loka, but rather not to send me into depression, but let it send me into productive, positive transformation of my own character and heart. And then, yeah, and then certainly for sure so I have a lot of disappointment in myself and my lackings. I could definitely say my confidence in the process is increasing. My enthusiasm to follow the process, my confidence to bring people to Srila Prabhupada. And sometimes that looks like not mentioning Prabhupada or not even mentioning chanting Hare Krishna. Sometimes it can look more direct. Sometimes it's supporting them in realizing what might not be true and opening their paradigms, begin to thought. So yeah. So I can definitely say I have more and more confidence that this process works. This process works, and I have more and more enthusiasm to bring people to the process. And that's why, yeah, I'm very secure and comfortable in, at least in principle, how I bring people to the process, endeavoring to meet them where they're at and supporting them to grow and supporting them to connect with Prabhupada as their current and direct link to the parampara. And yeah, and then like if someone comes to Krishna consciousness, you know, let's say in this lifetime, you know, through me or some program or something, then I want to cultivate a sense of responsibility to them, at least for this whole lifetime. And then I often feel like, yeah, very, very inadequate. But then at the same time, to feel responsible on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, well, that forces me to up my game. It forces me to up my game. And we're responsible to them, to support them. And then at the same time, because how I can be their friend, how I can truly be their friend, is support them to more and more take direct shelter in Srila Prabhupada, connect with the highest guidance within, connect with Prabhupada's instruction, Prabhupada's books. Then, because I might be sometimes meeting my responsibility decently, sometimes not. But the more that their process becomes not dependent on me, and it's between them and Prabhupada, then they're in good shape. And in saying that, I'm not saying that as an excuse to shirk my responsibility to be responsible to them. Yeah.
That's really helpful. I've heard you write about this in the beginning of the experience, The Power of Bhakti. I think you wrote a little bit about this, about how the community as it builds has supported your sadhana and your practice. And so you expressing this now feels very exciting and enlivening for me to help build community so that I can support myself by supporting other people. Like I'm really getting that. It's really clicking for me how that synergistically works. So I'm endeavoring for that. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I feel very, very inspired and excited. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. And I'll mention, yeah, there have been, because like, yeah, I've been around since the early 80s. And so there are different chapters in the movement, or at least different aspects of the organization, where like setting themselves up, you know, as the pure devotee, absolute shelter linked to the parampara, were like persons who, you know, clearly had some other desires. And I'm not criticizing them. I got lots of other desires. But that gets into the question. Because if we're in that current link to the parampara, like I'm the 33 and Prabhupada's 32 and Bhakti Siddhanta's 30, on the current link parampara, there's no room there for any desires other than pure service to Krishna. So then that becomes, and I saw some of these persons going through it. They needed to do this whole pretending act. And then of this whole pretending act, and then the pressure cooker after a few months or a few years would explode, sometimes in farcical comic ways, sometimes in very, very tragic ways that decades later is still causing a lot of tragedy in people's lives. And this is still going on, but I'm just not connected with it anymore. But that would be, you know, so it's one thing, like, yeah, I'm endeavoring to represent Prabhupada, and I fall short in many ways, and like that. So then there's, you know, let's be humble and sincere, not to use humility, so not to use false humility as an excuse to not give 100% in my own work and in sharing Krishna consciousness. But Krishna cautions, yeah, don't be a pretender. Let's not set ourselves up in positions where it's assumed by ourselves or others that we're at a higher level of purity and advancement than we are. Thank you.
Yes, I completely agree. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
I feel too how, like in regards to what Dhira Govinda Prabhu shared, like this, like there is this big like dark cloud around. I think it's like around spirituality and religion in general, that there is this one person and everyone submits to him, and then that person is finished, and then everyone else is finished. And Prabhupada, he gave us this, like, he came so close towards us, giving us a really nice, safe and sheltered safety net that we can just put ourselves together first, regardless of anyone else. And it's really makes me feel safe for till I go back home, back to Godhead. I feel very sheltered by Prabhupada.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Stop the recording.
Stop your